A few days ago, I dreamt about the United States being engulfed in a storm like I'd never seen before. Heavy snow, strong winds, cities paralyzed, people trapped inside their homes, power outages, all very similar to what's happening right now in reality. In the dream, I saw entire states in a state of emergency, flights canceled, roads impassable, millions of people in the dark and cold. But something struck me. That wasn't the worst moment. I need to say this calmly because I'm not someone used to speaking in public. I don't record videos, I don't seek attention, I don't like exposure. But after what's happening now in the United States, I understand that Jesus was confirming something he had already shown me before. January didn't start like any other month. From the very first days, I felt in my heart that something was different, and when the images started to appear, everything made sense. This winter storm currently hitting the United States is not just another weather event. Millions of people are facing extreme cold, roads completely blocked by ice, canceled flights, paralyzed cities, and most importantly, power outages. Entire states have people without electricity, without heating, with closed markets and difficulty even receiving aid. This is in the news now, but Jesus showed me this before, in a simple and straightforward way. Jesus showed me that a time would come when the infrastructure would begin to fail. Not all at once, but in the areas that sustain daily life: energy, transportation, supplies. He showed me people placing too much trust in systems that seem strong but are fragile under pressure. And now, with this storm, it's clear how simply changing the weather can make everything unstable. When I saw the news about the blackouts, people trapped in their homes without heating, trucks stuck on highways, and shelves beginning to empty in some regions due to delivery delays, I felt Jesus confirming it in my heart. He wasn't talking about something far off. He was talking about something that had already begun, and he made it clear that it wouldn't end quickly. Jesus showed me that this storm would have more than one phase, that what we are seeing now is only the first. Phase 2 comes with more cold, more affected states, more time of instability. Meteorologists are already talking about new masses of polar air descending again, in successive waves of intense cold. And when one storm comes after another, the system doesn't recover. It wears down. It fails. One image that Jesus placed very strongly before me was American flag frozen, hardened by the extreme cold. That wasn't just an impressive scene. It was a sign, not a political one, a spiritual and practical sign. An entire nation paralyzed by the weather, modern systems crashing, vulnerable people inside their own homes. Jesus showed me that this represented a time of warning. He made it clear that many will despair because they were not prepared, not spiritually, nor practically, because preparation is not fear. Jesus never called us to fear. He calls us to be vigilant. Preparation is a responsibility. It's taking care of the house. It's taking care of the children. It's taking care of your health. It's having the basics organized before the situation worsens. Jesus also showed me something very practical, that during prolonged cold periods, those who don't have stored water suffer. Those who don't have simple foods that don't depend on electricity suffer. Those who don't have adequate clothing, blankets, flashlights, batteries, suffer. He showed me people trying to heat their homes dangerously out of desperation because they hadn't prepared beforehand. And this costs lives in winter. He showed me that many deaths in the cold don't happen because of the storm itself, but because of a lack of preparedness, incorrect use of heaters, generators in enclosed spaces, lack of basic information. And he told me clearly, warn them to prepare now, while there's still time. Jesus also spoke to me about health, about not being entirely dependent on pharmacies, about having basic medicines at home, because there will be times when deliveries will be delayed, roads will close, and not everything will be available. This is already happening in some regions now, and it will intensify in phase 2 of the storm. Another thing Jesus made very clear is that whoever manages to plant even a little will have an advantage. not as a nice speech, but as reality. He showed me that the earth continues to produce even when systems fail. Whoever has something growing, even something simple, will better weather difficult times. This winter storm isn't just about the cold. Jesus showed me that it's about cycles. It's about instability. It's about a time when events like this cease to be rare and begin to repeat themselves. Not always the same, but always with the same effect. Difficulty accessing basic necessities. More expensive food, unstable energy supply, failing transportation. A harder life. I need to say this with great responsibility. Jesus didn't show me the end of the world. He showed me a change of times. A harder period, a period of adjustment, a period that those who are attentive will get through more firmly. January was marked for me as that point of confirmation, not as an exact date of collapse, but as a milestone. Something began, something changed, something emerged from the invisible into the visible, and this storm is part of that. I'm not saying this to scare anyone. I'm saying it because Jesus always warns beforehand. He doesn't take his people by surprise. He prepares. He warns. He cares. Something that has impressed me is seeing people who have never spoken of God saying that they feel something is out of place. Restless people, more attentive people, people observing the weather, the world, the sky. This is no coincidence. Jesus is awakening hearts. I'm just a mother. I'm 36 years old. I take care of my home. I don't have a title. I don't have a position. I don't have a stage. But I have a responsibility towards what Jesus puts it in my heart. And that's why I'm speaking. The storm is real. The cold is real. The blackouts are real. And they show exactly what Jesus warned me about. When systems fail, those who weren't prepared suffer the most. Therefore, I repeat, prepare calmly, wisely, without panic. Organize your home. Pray more. Be attentive. Don't ignore the signs. Jesus is not speaking idly. The signs have already begun. January is already speaking. The storm is not over. Phase 2 is coming, and those who are awake will understand. While I was praying about all of this, Jesus made it very clear to me that phase 2 of this storm does not begin abruptly. It begins when people think the worst is over. He showed me a false sense of relief, a moment when some will say the cold has subsided, the situation has stabilized, life can return to normal, and that's exactly when many will relax and let their guard down. But Jesus told me that this second phase comes with accumulated wear and tear, tired systems, tired people, smaller reserves, more unstable energy. Jesus showed me days when the cold is not only intense but prolonged, consecutive days when the temperature doesn't rise enough to recover what was lost. He showed me houses that were already cold becoming even more difficult to heat. He showed me people trying to solve everything by improvising because they believed it would be quick. And he told me clearly, tell them it won't be quick. He also showed me that phase 2 will not only affect one group of states. It spreads, because when one region depends on another for supplies, transportation, and energy, the impact multiplies. Trucks are delayed, deliveries pile up, markets receive fewer products. What does arrive is more expensive, and this begins to weigh on households, budgets, routines, and people's emotional health. Jesus drew my attention to something very specific. Extreme cold exposes hidden weaknesses. It exposes those who are totally dependent on electricity, those who have no alternative source of heating, those who have no stored water, those who lack basic food at home. He didn't say this to condemn anyone, but to warn them, because he cares, but he also teaches us to be vigilant. He showed me that many will realize too late that the basics make a difference. Enough water for a few days, food that doesn't require refrigeration, appropriate clothing for extreme cold, extra blankets, flashlights, batteries, charged power banks. He showed me that this seems simple, but it saves lives when the power goes out and doesn't come back on the same day. Jesus also spoke to me about the danger of despair. He showed me people trying to heat their homes unsafely because they hadn't prepared beforehand, and he told me to warn responsibly. That the cold doesn't kill only because of the weather, but also because of impulsive decisions. That's why he insists so much on preparing calmly, wisely, without rushing. And something very powerful that Jesus showed me is that at the same time that phase two is putting pressure, he clearly sustains those who remain with him. Not in a magical or spectacular way, but in a practical way. Help that arrives at the right time. A neighbor who appears. A resource that was not lacking. A door that opens when there seemed to be no way out. He showed me that sustenance comes, but not to those who ignore the warning. Jesus also spoke to me about families, about caring for children, about keeping the home environment as calm as possible, because prolonged cold affects the body and mind. He showed me that prepared parents transmit security, unprepared parents transmit fear, and he told me, prepare to protect the hearts of your children. He reminded me again of Joseph, not as a distant story, but as a pattern. The warning came first, the preparation came first, the sustenance came later. Jesus told me that this pattern hasn't changed. What changes is who decides to listen. I felt Jesus telling me that many people will only understand this warning when the first days of phase two begin, when the power goes out again, when the heating fails once more, when the markets take even longer to restock. But he also told me that those who listen now will get through it more firmly. And he was very clear with me about something I need to repeat. This is not about panicking, it's about vigilance. It's about responsibility. It's about faith in action. Jesus never called anyone to despair. He calls for attention, for organization, for trust that translates into simple actions. He also showed me that this period will touch the hearts of many people, people who never thought about God, people who always postponed it, people who said it had nothing to do with their lives. Jesus showed me that the cold, the instability, and the feeling of vulnerability will open space for profound questions, and he wants to find these people prepared inside, not dominated by fear. I keep talking because Jesus has not finished warning yet. January isn't over. The storm isn't over. Phase two is coming, and there's still time to organize the house, adjust the routine, strengthen faith, and take care of those close to you. I don't say this as someone superior to anyone else. I say it as someone who listened and obeyed. Jesus showed me. Jesus confirmed it. Jesus commanded me to speak, and as long as he commands, I will continue. If this message spoke to you, don't ignore it. Don't let it pass by as if it were just another video. Prepare calmly. Pray. Organize. Take care of your loved ones. Because Jesus doesn't warn to scare, he warns to protect, and those who are paying attention will recognize when phase two begins. After that, I felt Jesus. He drew my attention to something that almost no one is talking about right now. He showed me that when phase two truly begins, the problem won't just be the cold itself, but time. The time without power, the time without adequate heating, the time without normal restocking in the markets. Jesus, he told me that many are underestimating how long a situation like this can last when it comes in successive waves. It's not hours, it's not a day, it's consecutive days that change the mood, the body, and the routine of families. Jesus, he also showed me that emotional strain will take its toll. Tired people, sleeping poorly, worried about bills, children, and the elderly. He showed me that prolonged cold weather tests people's patience and increases conflicts within the home. And that's why he insisted so much on talking to me about preparing in advance. Because when the house is minimally organized, the heart copes better. When it isn't, fear grows quickly. He showed me some very practical things. Jesus, he talked about keeping water protected from freezing, about storing simple foods that can be prepared even without electricity, such as grains, canned goods, and dried foods, about having extra blankets and layered clothing, about working flashlights, stored batteries, and charge cell phones whenever possible. He showed me that those who have these things at home get through phase 2 with less stress. Jesus, he also warned me about the cars. He showed me people who got stuck because they let their tanks get almost empty, thinking everything would go back to normal quickly. He told me to warn people keeping fuel is safety in winter. Keeping the car prepared is caring for the family. These things seem small when everything is working, but they make all the difference when the cold sets in. Another thing that he showed me more about the elderly and children. He told me that they feel the cold more intensely, that their bodies lose heat faster, and he asked me to warn families to be extra careful, to keep their homes properly heated, and not to improvise in dangerous ways. Jesus, he cares about life in the details. And something that really struck me was when he showed me people saying, "Nobody warned us." And he told me, "Warn us now, because the warnings are already being given. The extreme cold has already arrived. The blackouts have already happened. The roads have already closed. What's missing is for many people to understand that this is not over." He made it clear to me that phase 2 will separate those who listened from those who ignored. Not as punishment, but as a consequence. Those who listened got organized. Those who ignored continued living as if nothing would change. And when the pressure increases, the difference becomes apparent. He also showed me something full of hope. He showed me that in the midst of this difficult period, there will be care, people helping people, families supporting each other, communities organizing themselves. He showed me that love will appear in times of difficulty, but he reinforced that those who prepare now can help later. Those who don't prepare can barely take care of themselves. He told me something that stuck with me. Trusting isn't about standing idly by. Trusting is about listening and acting. Trusting is about getting your house in order before the storm gets worse. Trusting is about protecting your loved ones before they're gone. Trusting is about not scoffing at the signs when they appear. I still feel, I'm asking you to repeat this clearly. January isn't over yet. The storm isn't over. Phase 2 is coming, and there's still time to prepare the house, adjust the routine, and strengthen the heart. I don't say this as someone who knows more. I say it as someone who heard and obeyed. He showed me. Jesus confirmed. He commanded me to speak, and as long as he commands, I will continue speaking. If this message touched you, don't ignore it. Prepare calmly, wisely, without panic. Take care of your loved ones. Pray more. Be attentive. Because he doesn't warn to scare. He warns to protect. As I prayed once more, he showed me something that made me very attentive. He showed me that many people will judge this storm only by what they see at first, by the snow on the first day, by the initial blackout, by the cold that seems to lessen for a few hours. But he told me that the danger lies in thinking that this defines everything, because what comes after is the accumulation. It's the fatigue. It's the repetition. It's when the body is already exhausted and the system hasn't yet recovered. He showed me that when the cold weather persists, small setbacks become big problems. A heater that stops working, plumbing that freezes, a delivery that is delayed longer than expected, a market that takes a long time to reopen. He told me that these things seem small in isolation, but together they change the daily lives of families, and that is why he insists so much on preparing in advance. He spoke to me clearly about simple organization. He showed me people separating foods that don't spoil easily, people putting water in appropriate containers, people checking flashlights, batteries, chargers. He showed me that this isn't exaggeration, it's care. He told me that those who organize themselves beforehand get through it with less anxiety when the cold returns. He also drew my attention to something that almost no one talks about. He showed me that intense cold affects health silently. Blood pressure, breathing, circulation. He told me to warn people not to ignore their body's signals, to keep themselves properly warm, to drink water even in the cold, to take even more care of the elderly and children, because prolonged winter takes an invisible toll. Another thing that what he showed me was the financial impact. He told me that when supplies are delayed, prices rise chaotically. What arrives is more expensive. What is lacking for longer. And this puts pressure on families who were already living on the edge. He told me to warn people, planning now prevents bad decisions later. He also showed me that many people will seek answers when phase 2 truly begins. People who have never prayed, people who have never spoken to him, people who have always procrastinated. He showed me that an unstable environment makes the heart more sensitive, and he wants to find these people with clear minds, not dominated by fear. He made me understand that this period will separate attitudes, not people, attitudes. Those who choose to listen and act wisely will get through it better. Those who choose to ignore the signs continue living as if nothing is happening, and when the pressure increases, this choice becomes strongly apparent. He also showed me something full of care. He showed me that he does not abandon those who trust in him. He sustains them in simple ways, sometimes with unexpected help, sometimes with provision that arrives at the right time, sometimes with peace amidst difficulty. But he told me that this peace goes hand in hand with vigilance, not carelessness. I keep talking because it continues to be confirmed. January is still ongoing. The storm hasn't ended. Phase 2 isn't theory. It's a consequence of a system driven by prolonged cold. And there's still time to prepare better. I'm not saying this as someone trying to show off. I'm saying it as someone who listened and obeyed. He showed me. He warned me. He asked me to speak. And as long as he asks, I will continue. If you're hearing this now, don't ignore it. Don't put it off. Organize your home. Take care of your loved ones. Pray more attentively. Prepare calmly. Because he doesn't speak without purpose. He speaks to protect, to care, and to walk with us through whatever lies ahead.